Welcome to lecture 4 of module 6. The last lecture covered the management thoughts, schools, and classification theories. In this lecture, we will continue with the management theories further. But before we start learning about the neoclassical and modern management theories, let us know about some philosophers also who have contributed significantly in the development of these theories. Traditional, conventional, or customary ideas of management were slowly given up, and management started using the scientific principles. In the words of Ervik, modern management has thrown open a new branch of human knowledge, a fresh universe of discourse. And during the period the following this industrial revolution, certain pioneers led to the challenges of these traditional character of the management, and they tried upon them and introduced the new ideas and characters and approaches of management. The notable contributors of this period are one, Professor Charles Babbage, a Cambridge mathematician who emphasized applying science and mathematics to business instead of relying on guesswork and opinions. He advocated the accurate observation, measurement, and data driven decisions. His ideas focused on analyzing the operations, dividing work into mental and physical tasks, calculating precise costs, and rewarding workers with efficiency based bonuses. James Watt Jr. and Matthew Robinson contributed to the development of management thoughts by following certain management techniques like production planning, standardization of components, then maintenance system, and also the plant machine layouts. Then provision of welfare for the personals was also included. Scheme for executive development, along with marketing research and forecasting. They were elaborated using these statistical records, and this helped in the development of the management thought. Then Towney emphasized the combination of engineers and economists possessing accounting techniques, and these skills as institutional managers use them were very important. He favored the organized exchange of experience among the managers and pleaded for an organized effort to pool the great fund of accumulated knowledge in the art of developing the work management. Whereas Robert Oman stressed the importance of human element in this industry, managing and improving working conditions through shorter hours, housing, hygiene training, child education, and canteen facilities. He is regarded as the father of the personal management. One of the contributions by these philosophers and changes in the socio-economic setup is neoclassical theory formulation. This theory was built on the base of classical theory first, so it modified the things and improved and extended the classical theory. The classical theory extended on job content and management of the physical resources, whereas this neoclassical theory gave greater emphasis to the individuals and the group relationships in the workplace. This theory pointed out the role of psychology and sociology in the understanding of individual and group behavior in the organization. Elton Mayo, an Australian scholar of logic and philosophy, led Harvard researchers in the famous Hawthorne experiments in Chicago. These studies highlighted the importance of informal groups, communications, and leadership in organizations. He is regarded as the father of the human relations school. The studies revealed that employee productivity depends more on the job satisfaction and social needs than on the physical conditions or the wages. Mayo concluded that emotional and social factors, especially the group participation, played a very crucial role in workplace efficiency. The important contribution of Hawthorne experiment were: number one, a business organization is basically a social system, and it is not just a the techno-friendly system. Uh, or you can say it is not just a techno-economic system. The employer can be motivated by the psychological and social wants, because this behavior is also influenced by feelings, emotions, and attitudes. Thus, economic incentives are not only the methods to motivate people. For example, if somebody is not well, or if some of the family members is not well, then definitely the attitude will have a different approach towards the work on that particular day. Then management, number three, it says that management must learn to develop the cooperative attitudes and not rely merely on the commands. The fourth one is the participation, that in becomes an important instrument in human relations movements. In order to achieve this participation, effective two-way communication network is essential. Then number five is linked with the employee satisfaction in any business organization. Therefore, the management must take greater interest in the employee satisfaction. Because if the employees are satisfied with the environment, with the remuneration, with the manner of communication, the hierarchy is interacting with them, then definitely they are going to have a better performance level. Then number six is the group psychology. It plays an important role in any business organization, as we must therefore rely more on the informal group efforts, because this group psychology means that the people who belong to a single group, they have the feeling called the we feeling, and many a times their responses are based on the responses of the other group members. The neoclassical theory emphasizes that man is a living machine, and he is far more important than the inmate machine or inanimate machine. Hence, the key to the higher productivity lies in the employee's morale. High morale results in the higher output. So, with this background information, now we come to the elements of the behavioral theory or the human relation approaches. There are three elements of behavioral theory. The first element is recognizing the individual differences in feelings, attitudes, perceptions, and skills. A worker's inner world and human relations at work play a greater role in productivity than the external factors, making a multidimensional model of motivation, that is economic, individual, and social is essential. The second element is the work groups. Workers are not isolated. They are social beings and should be treated as such by the management. The neoclassical theory describes the vital effects of group psychology and behavior on the motivation and productivity. The third element is participative management that involves workers in decision making and job planning, aiming to raise the productivity while ensuring that convenience, security, and social needs are met in the process. The human relationists drew conclusions from Hawthorne studies that had some limitations also. The first one is these conclusions were based on the clinical trials rather than on the scientific evidences. And second was the study tends to overemphasize the psychological aspect at the cost of the structural and technical aspect. Whereas for the smooth functioning of any institution, as we have seen in the earlier lectures, that both the structural and the technical aspects are equally important. Though definitely the psychology plays a significant role in the enforcement of these aspects. Suppose there is a person with a lot of good technical skills related to cooking, but the person somebody at home is not in the good health status, and that person is all the time thinking about that family member. So the psychological aspect will play the role here, and his technical skills of cooking is going to be hampered and resulting in the differences in the results that we are receiving. It is assumed, then number three, it is also assumed that the organizational problems are amenable to solutions through human relations. This assumption does not hold good in practice. That is, the problems that can be solved because people have share certain kind of relationship, it's not always practical. Many a times rules, regulations, and certain kinds of orders, they are also required for solving the organizational problems. Then number four is the human relationist saw only the human variables as critical and ignored other variables. Then number five, the human relationist emphasized this thing that the group and the group decisions making is very, very important. Then but in the practice the groups may create the problems also for taking the collective decision, and that not may not be possible always in terms of the organizational management. Then another major theory of management thought called modern management theory that included the three significant approaches. They are one, systems approach, and two, contingency approach, three, quantitative approach. Modern theory considers an organization as an adaptive system which has to be adjusted to changes in the environment. There are organizations that know how to define as the structures are processed, and in these each individual interact for attaining the objectives. The word system is derived from the Greek word meaning. This is to bring together or to combine. A system is a set of interconnected and interrelated elements or components or parts to achieve certain goals. Um, It is similar to, you can think of a solar system where each component is complete in itself, but its whole performance is also dependent on the responses from the other components of that system. So a system approach in management has three significant parts. One, every system is goal oriented and it must have a purpose or objective to be attained. Number two, in designing the system, we must establish the necessary arrangement of the components. Number three, inputs of information, material, and energy are allocated for processing or per plan, so that the output can be achieved and the objectives of the systems are fulfilled. The characteristics of the systems approach include: number one, an organization is as a system that has got five basic parts: inputs, process, output, feedback, and environment. And if we look at this thing in terms of the food services, we realize the output, the input is the raw ingredients of the dish that has to be prepared. The process includes the cooking or the preparing process of that dish. The output is the product that turns out after the raw ingredients are processed. Then the feedback is from the both from the customer who is going to consume it, as well as from the manager who observes it. And the environment includes the complete component or structure of that unit, where all the elements that is related to the equipments, the hygiene, safety, supply, etc., they becomes the part of that environment. It draws upon the environment for the inputs to produce certain desirable outputs. So the success of these inputs can be judged by the means of feedback. If necessary, it can modify mix of inputs to produce desirable outputs as per changing demands. So this was the first characteristic. The second characteristic is being multi-level and multi-dimensional. The systems approach points out complex multi-level and multi-dimensional character. It is similar that the earth is rotating and earth is revolving. So there are two performances that earth is doing. In the solar system, we have both a micro and the macro approach in this systems approaches. An institution is micro within a whole business system. It is macro with respect to its own internal units. Within a company, as a system, we have one production system, then finance subsystem is there, marketing subsystem, and personnel subsystem. And all these subsystems and many more, they are the components that are interrelated for that particular organization. Both the parts as well as the whole are equally important. At all the levels, organizations interact in many ways. For example, the finance subsystem will interact with the production subsystems in terms of supplying of the raw ingredients, whereas the marketing subsystem will interact with the production subsystem in terms of the in relation to the product produced and supplied to the customers. Then the third characteristic is being dynamic. We have a dynamic process of interaction occurring within the structure of an organization. The equilibrium of an organization and its structure is itself dynamic in nature because it is continuously changing. And since it includes all the living individuals that are interacting in the system, it has to be dynamic, because only the machines can be static, and that too only for a certain span of time. Otherwise, many a times these machines also require the interference of the human beings in order to make them function properly. And it then depends on the caliber and the training of the staff who is going to use that machine. So since it is an ever changing and a continuously changing process, hence it is dynamic in nature, and something that is dynamic needs a constant vigilance in that. Then number 4 is the multi-motivated. Classical theory assumed a single objective. For instance, profit is the only objective of any organization, or only welfare can be the motive for that food service institution, or it can just be a source of a facility for any other kind of organization, as discussed earlier in hospitals, etc. The systems approach recognizes that there may be several motivations behind such actions and behavior. The management has to combine these multiple objectives, for example, economic objectives and social objectives, for achieving the organizational goals. Number 5, the characteristics is multidisciplinary. Systems approach integrates the and uses with the profit idea emerging from different schools of the thought. Management freely draws concepts and techniques from many fields of study such as psychology, social psychology, sociology, ecology, economics, mathematics, etc. So, using these multidisciplinary approaches provides a broader platform for developing the understanding of the performance of their staff, and how what are the drawbacks that have emerged in the achievement of the objectives. The sixth one is multivariable. It is assumed that there is no simple cause and effect phenomena. An event may be the result of so many factors which themselves are interrelated and interdependent. Some factors are controllable, which while some are not, and intelligent planning and control are necessary to to see the feasibility of these variable factors that emerge during the process. Next is adaptive. The survival and growth of an organization in a dynamic environment demands an adaptive system which can continuously adjust to the changing conditions. An organization is an open system adapting itself through the process of feedback. Number 8 is probabilistic, and this here the management principles point out only probability and never the certainty of performance and the consequent results. So each time the same dish, same procedure is going to result in the same type of dish is little questionable. So the standardized methods are adopted here. Since probability in this systems approach is given a value, hence each time the constant vigilance and standardization is always considered important. We have to face so many variables simultaneously. Our forecasts are mere tendencies. Therefore, intelligent forecasting and planning can reduce the degree of uncertainty to a considerable extent. In 1970s, the contingency approach gained recognition as the key to effective management. It emphasized that there is no single best way to manage an organization, as the optimal approach depends on various situational factors. This perspective emerged from the systems approach and retained its core principles, such as the dynamic relationship between the organization and its environment. However, the contingency approach addressed the abstract nature of the system framework by offering an more critical and more practical operational model. It acknowledged that organizational structures and management practices must align with the environmental conditions, making it more adaptable and realistic framework for the organizational effectiveness. The contingency approach is a modern management theory and an extension of the systems approach. It is also known as the situational approach, emphasizing that there is no single best way to manage in all situations. Instead, effective management depends on various factors such as external environment, internal conditions, and the specific needs of the organization. This approach focuses on the interrelationship between variables in a given situation and it tailors managerial actions accordingly. It considers not only the current situation but also how that situation influences the behavior and functioning of the organization. Internal contingency factors are the key elements within an organization that influence its management approach and effectiveness. These include technical things like which affects how tasks are performed. People also are included who bring skills and behavior to the organization and purpose with which actually it is the purpose which defines the goals and the direction. Then the size of the organization also determines the complexity and the scale of management required. Along with it, the structure, which outlines how the roles and responsibilities are organized, is also an important factor. So these factors interact with each other and must be aligned for effective decision making and organizational performance. Here in the diagram, we have a circle that is enclosing these five factors. So these five factors, they are interrelated and are constantly putting pressures on the wall of this organization. Then there is the external contingency factor component. They are that influences from that have their influence from the outside the organization that affect its operation and decision making. These includes technological factors which you can say they are driven by innovations and processing changes. Nowadays, there is a constant innovation in the technology of equipments, so cooking equipments also need to be upgraded, and hence this is the external factor. So once the cooking equipments change, the training is required, and hence it is going to have a impact on the organization or pressure on that organization. Then next is the economic factors such as inflation, interest rate, and market conditions. If the because of all these things, the cost of raw materials can rise, and if the cost of the raw material rises, the cost of the finished product also rises, and in the process the customer has to pay more for that. Once the customer has to pay more for that, then the decisions of the customer whether to go for that product or for that particular kind of food or for choosing that organization is also they are also guided by these economic factors. Then next is the legal and the political factors, which involves the laws, regulation, and government policies. So these we have seen many times there are small food outlets on the roadside. Suddenly there is a government intervention and policy is that they will not allow them on that particular site, and hence they are all removed from that place, and thus this affects the those institutions and those establishments. So legal factors are equally important. Then comes the social cultural factors that include the societal values, lifestyle changes, and demographics. Organizations must adapt to these external forces to remain competitive and effective in the constantly changing environment. The theory highlights three main key points here. First, management decisions depends on the factors outside the organization or its subsystems. And second was that an organization's actions should align with external conditions to stay connected with its environment. Finally, because each organization where environmental relationship is unique, no single action works in every situation. Responses must be adapted to specific circumstances. This history has several limitation of this history of this theory has several limitations. It lacks sufficient appropriate literature and is often complex to understand or apply. Empirical testing is difficult, making it hard to verify in practice. Moreover, it is mainly reactive in nature, focusing on responding to situations rather than anticipating and preventing problems. Some of the distinguishing features between system approach and contingency approach is mentioned in this table. Systems approach is a model of human being which is richer with full range of human behavior. Its organizational variables cover personal, social, technical, structural, and environmental variables, whereas its evolutionary theory says that it is given by social psychologists. Whereas, if we talk of contingency approaches, they use the model of human being with the structural adaptation of organization to its task environment. Its organizational variables are structural adaptation of organization and organizational equilibrium by a change in the task environment. This theory was given by the sociologists. Then the quantitative approach movement centers on adapting the mathematical models and processes to management situations. There are three major areas of concern of this theory: management science operations, management, and the management information system. So the three areas are management science, management operations, and management information system. The features of this theory include the problem solving and use the mathematical tools to solve them. Mathematical models can be developed by quantifying various variables of the problem and mathematical symbols can be used to describe the managerial problems, whereas mathematical tools, operation research, and simulation and model building are used to find out solutions to the managerial problems. With this a complete framework of management theories, now you will be able to work out a system for the food service institutions. Wherever you wish to place yourself in the food business, by now you know how to go about in food establishment. Thank you, students. In the next lecture, we will discuss about the institutional management.